Welcome to Conserve Our Heritage on UBC TV, Monday 9 p.m. And of course, we have a couple of stories concerning conservation and also heritage. But this time around, we're in Kibaale National Park. And we have had a couple of exchanging words and seeing how good they are and how they are faring. But tonight, I'm having one of the area conservation warden, and I'm very sure he must be in position to give us exactly what he does and who he is. Good to see you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Mr. Karamagi. My name is Wilson Kagoro. I work as the warden community conservation for Kibaale National Park. It's a pleasure having you here.
Yeah, pleasure too. Coming down the field and feel what you do.
Yes, please.
To make some more headlines. Well, Kibaale National Park is one of the most beautiful forested parks. Yes. I don't know how you call it.
Oh yeah, actually Kibaale National Park is one of the parks we have in Uganda, and it is actually one of the forested national parks in Uganda. It was gazetted in the year 1993 from a forest reserve to a national park. When a protected area is actually, when it changes the name from a forest reserve to a national park, that is an elevation, it's a promotion.
Oh.
Because of the attractions it has. And Kibaale is actually famously known for chimpanzee tracking. That is the main tourism activity that we have. And our main tourism hub for Kibaale is in Kanyanchu. So most visitors, when they come, they actually go to Kanyanchu, where they do most of the chimpanzee tracking, chimpanzee habituation experience, and nature walks. So it is such a good park with several attractions and a lot to see for all the Ugandans and all the people all over the world.
Yeah, besides that, people coming from all over the world to come and do chimpanzee tracking, and you can name it better than I do. We have communities living around the national park.
Yes.
And I know there must be a relationship between the community and the national park. We're going to talk about the national park, Kibaale, and particularly you.
Oh yeah, thank you so much. Thank you so much, moderator. I think there are quite a number of programs that Uganda Wildlife Authority has across all the estates. But particularly for Kibaale, I must say we have very unique programs. One of them is definitely, we have a community conservation education and awareness program that brings closer communities to the park. And my work is purely to bridge that gap that exists between park and community. What are those activities that we do? We do a number of activities. One of them is that we do carry out conservation education and awareness. We reach out to communities, share with them about the importance of the park to their lives, and of course, generally, as Ugandans.
Is there no instances where you find the community need the park, but because of reasons best known to the national park, they aren't supposed to cross over? And I think many times you must have faced this.
Oh yeah, it is true. It is not that everything is everything is good for the community. There are those instances where communities feel we have not satisfied them, especially when it comes to issues of human-wildlife conflict. Okay. Here we have about 2 animals that normally crop right. We have elephants, both forest elephants and savanna elephants. We also have baboons. So those 2 animals are the most, actually, they are the major crop riders around Kibaale, and they have actually, in a way, affected our relationship with the community.
Okay.
And when they do crop ride, of course, the blame goes to us. That why are we not controlling? You know, these are animals. They are not probably even domestic. They are wild. They don't know the boundaries, that this is a park, this is a community. So definitely they go out to look for food, to look for their basic needs, to look for water, and in so doing, when they go out of their boundaries into the community, that creates a big problem. And that is what we're calling human-wildlife conflicts.
Conflicts, yes.
And as Kibaale National Park, we have tried a number of interventions. One of the interventions is that we have tried as much as possible to dig trenches along the park boundary. I'm sure you have been moving around and you have seen how trenches look like. And when we are beginning to dig the trenches, our understanding with the community was that we dig the trenches and they do the periodic maintenance.
The community?
The community themselves. And that's why these trenches are dug close to the park but on the community side, so that any time they want to maintain them, they can maintain them, because they're helping them especially deter the crop raiding elephants.
Are there no incidences where the community can cross over to the park again?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I'm very sure they need the park.
Oh yeah.
For either for medicinal reasons, maybe let's talk of firewood, name it. Are there no instances where, since you've given them the power to dig the trenches, that means they also have the power to find an easier route back to the park?
Oh yeah. Actually, those instances are there. As I said earlier, that one of the challenges that we have is that we have human-wildlife conflicts. But on the other side, we have other programs that are so friendly that bring communities closer to us. We have a program called Resource Access Program. It is a collaborative, actually we call it collaborative resource management, where we sign agreements with communities to allow them legally to access those particular resources that they have possibly requested for. We have done an inventory to establish in terms of abundance, in terms of the availability of those resources they have requested for. And once we have assessed that these resources are there and they are there in plenty and they can harvest them on a sustainable basis, we go ahead, negotiate with them, sign agreement with them. And as I speak, we have 13 agreements for Kibaale. Some of them are for actually fishing. We have greater lakes inside the park.
Okay.
And some of these lakes, we have regulated the number of people who access them at a time. We know the number of people, we know how many nets they use, we know how many
But they access them at a fee.
They access them, well, we charge them a very friendly fee. We charge them the fee which is equivalent to an entrance fee into the park on one-day basis. So, but they fish throughout the month. But of course, we always have time. We don't allow everybody to go inside. We allow people. We know how many people are accessing the park, and we even allow them. We even count the number of nets and hooks they are going to use.
They are going to use.
So that we are able to regulate the activity, and people do not exhaust, of course, exhaust the fish which is inside those particular lakes which are inside the park. We have agreements for beekeeping, where people, organized community groups, come request for fixing beehives along the park boundary. By the way, beehives are very good because they help the community. Of course, apart from harvesting the honey, they deter the crop raiding elephants.
Elephants, yeah.
Where there are bees, where there are bee fences, elephants do not reach there.
I think that was the primary reason for having the beehives along
the stretches along the park.
The park, yes.
Yes.
But I think if there is other benefits, I think that are secondary. But are there harvests of honey that you're really proud of as a national park?
Oh yes.
Or maybe it's just minimal?
Oh yeah, I must testify that we have already had the benefits. Some of the groups which are organized, whom we have entered into agreements with, have already harvested quite a number of liters in terms of liters of honey. And I think that is not only helping us to improve their livelihood. As I said earlier, that beehives where bees are, of course bees are wildlife. And therefore, we don't have a problem finding an organized community and entering into an agreement with them. So when they sign agreements with us, they fix the beehives, they harvest the honey, we allow them sell the honey. We don't actually say, no, you bring back the honey. They have already benefited from the honey. I must set out there are groups in Siliva, sub-county, in Kamwenge, touching Kibaale National Park,
yes,
that have benefited from that. And I must say they have really felt the benefit of the park to them. And in fact, when these beehives, of course, those bees are fixed next to the park boundary, there are plenty of trees inside the park. Remember, Kibaale is a forest park.
Yes, yes.
And being a forest park, of course, there are a number of trees that are medicinal. So as bees go out to hunt and look for nectar from the different species, that honey has a lot of market. And everybody out there will look for it because the bees are visiting different medicinal plants
within the park,
and this is something very good. And that's why we have actually encouraged as many communities as we can to come out, to be organized. And so once they are ready, they come to us, and once they have requested, we actually organize them more and sign agreements with them so that they can benefit.
How often do they harvest the honey?
There are usually 2 seasons for harvesting honey. It is usually at the beginning of a dry season, and of course we have 2 long rainy seasons. Yes. One begins from March up to the end of June. So June is usually the time for harvesting, And then, of course, another one begins from around September up to
December,
around
January.
November towards December. So those two seasons are good for harvesting the honey.
So,
And when they are going there, we allow them and we give them permits because
yeah.
we know them, can identify
So
them.
those bee hives are not for individuals; they are for
Groups, organized groups. Yeah, but however,
but
we
controlled by Uganda Wildlife Authority.
of course, controlled by, we have actually built those groups, we have organized them more. They have made committees, which committees we train ourselves. And of course, they are supposed to be neutral. They are not supposed to sign on the side of the community, and also on the side of course, they have to play a neutral role. When there is a problem, definitely they report to us. And once they report to us and it requires our action, we're able to respond. We're able to go and help iron out a number of course, there are group dynamics.
Yeah.
If there are issues they have to handle as a group, we are able to intervene and we're able to work with them to make sure that they sort out.
Now, I think clearly here, deterring elephants from riding crops in the
Yes.
community. I think there are only two major things you do: beehives and digging trenches.
Yes.
Is there any other method?
Oh yeah,
Or
we actually have other interventions. One of the other interventions that is quick and faster is scare shooting. At night, we don't switch off our phones. Our phones are on 24/7. Even if I'm on leave, sometimes definitely people call me and I have to respond. If I'm not on station, I have to contact my colleagues who are on station. So we actually make swift responses whenever we're called upon when elephants are out in the community. Because no trenches, by the way, Kibaale has a distance parameter around the park of 229. And out of the 229, we only have 58.3 kilometers of the boundary marked with a trench. Now, out of those, you can imagine 53 out of the 229. That is a very long distance. So we have, of course, other areas covered by, of course, others have a railway line, others have rivers, and where there is a river, you can't dig a trench there.
yeah, true.
So what we are trying to encourage our people around the park to do is to look at those interventions that can help them solve the problem. So apart from the trenches, apart from the beekeeping, we also make swift responses at night. Our rangers are always there, standby. Whenever we are, reports come to us, we're able to respond. We're able to, there's a standby vehicle to take rangers anytime during the night to respond to
How
the
would be your credit on having trenches and beehives and maybe quick response system that you're using? How do you rate it? Do you think it has done a lot? You no longer have those phone calls at night, or you still think there is a lot to do?
Oh yeah, that is a very good question, Bwana Moderator. What I think is very important for us and for all Ugandans to know is that we don't have trenches everywhere. So this method of scare shooting, where you use a gun, AK-47, or use whatever bomb, it helps us scare away the elephants. But of course, with time, you know, what is so funny with elephants is that they get used to one method. So if you use a trench alone, they will actually get used to the trench, and instead they will start even silting it, pushing soil inside the trench, and they will create a way. So what we have done to make sure that we remedy that is that we have tried to maintain those trenches periodically. Now, the other method is definitely beekeeping. Of course, you know, bees are very inactive at night.
Yes.
But the bar noise which comes from the bees, even if they are sleeping at night, makes the elephants uncomfortable, and so they will not come and pass where there are beehives.
So that means you no longer have those phone calls
Yeah,
in areas where you have trenches and beehives.
Where we have trenches, I must say, there are areas, of course, we have fewer phone calls where we have trenches. But also we have areas where there are trenches, but those trenches are not effective because they are crossing points, they are water points. Where there is a water point, becomes a weak point for the trench to be dug. Because however much you dig down,
the rainy season,
definitely it will flood and the whole place will be messy, and of course elephants can always pass there. So what we do, we think about looking at beehives and putting them in those water-logged swampy areas so that they're able to deter the crop-raiding elephants. But then in addition to that, we go an extra mile. When they call us, say maybe they have escaped from a very weak point, because not the whole stretch of the trench can be effective. There are areas which are also rocky. You try to dig a trench, but you find stones. And so when you find stones, you can't use definitely any other method. Definitely you try to, of course, well, you can always try to dig a trench, but still the trench is not so deep. So still we have to intervene. And our presence on the ground, our rangers are trained in such a way that they know some of these animal behavior. Now, so when they shoot the elephant, definitely they don't expect the elephant sometimes to go instantly. So they have to give it time. And by doing that, they are trying to push them back. And of course, with time, they go back.
Now, Mr. Kagoro,
yes, please.
I know Kibaale National Park borders Kabarole.
Kabarole touches 4 districts: Kamwenge, Kasese, and Chenjojo.
And Chenjojo. All these districts and where they are bordering the park, do
yes,
you
please.
have the same complaints? Is it the same thing, or it quite differ from?
I must say, not all those places have the same issue. Actually, when you go to Kasese, because of the swamp area from Lake George towards Kibaale National Park and touching Queen Elizabeth, there are hippos, which are a problem to them.
They are a problem to elephants?
No, they are a problem to the community, because people there grow rice. And you know, hippos are good grazers. They always like short grass, and that is how rice looks like. So when they come out, and definitely they taste the rice and they know how sweet it is, they will always keep on coming out. So we look at other interventions. Of course, for hippos, what we do is we target their trails. They always use the same trails. So what we encourage people to do when they are getting out of the water, they use the same trail. And when they are getting back to the water, they use the same trail. Oh. So we actually always encourage them to also dig trenches so that they can block the exit, I mean, that point where the hippos are coming out from. And of course, when it comes to areas like Chenjojo, apart from the northern sector, there are places where there are tea estates. Where we have tea estates, we have fewer problems. Personally, I've done research for my master's program, and it was about identifying crops that are not eaten by elephants, particularly. And one of the actually crops which I found that is very effective once it is well planted is tea. Tea is short. And once it is actually well planted, of course, at probably a distance of at least, even if it is half a kilometer from the park, and it is marking the boundary, and it is well planted, and there are no footpaths, elephants will not pass there. And that is a very effective...
What is the logic behind?
No, the tea itself, of course, you have seen tea plantations. Tea is very short, so it makes their movement, they don't feel comfortable walking in a tea plantation. Unless there are pathways for the vehicle, where they are placing machinery and there is a big gap and they can be able to use that gap. That is where we have problems. So in the area of research which I tried where I did the sampling, we had fewer problems. Why? Because people had planted tea along the park boundary. And these are the methods we are trying to share with communities neighboring the park. If they can try this, if one method doesn't work, they can try another one.
Another method.
And I think that is also another good method, because where we have encouraged people to plant crops that are not eaten by animals, like tea, like coffee, crops like garlic, crops, of course, onions. Sometimes in some places where people have planted onions next to the park, they have also eaten them. Elephants have eaten onions, but garlic they are not, and it is a high value crop in terms of money and in terms of cost of returns from garlic. So those crops have been identified, and when we are having our community outreach programs, we are able to share with farmers, to share with affected people what sort of intervention is relevant for them for that particular area.
Thank you very much for watching Conserve Our Heritage on UBC TV every Monday, 9 to 10 p.m. My name is Glen Stephen Karamagi with Kagoro down in Kibaale National Park, the most precious forested park, like he says, with many activities, but giving us a hint on how we can live very well with the animals in the national park. Of course, many methods have been done, and I think it's one of the few things that I really think it is interesting. Thank you very much. Conserve Our Heritage.
Just closer to the communities. It's a mobile clinic program. This is a new program altogether. It has been, we have always had community conservation awareness in communities, but this is a new program, the mobile clinic, which is intended to add value to the community conservation awareness program that we always have. Basically what we do with this program is that we go out, we always inform communities that we are coming to make outreach with them, and when we are there, we are able to, we go with nurses, we go with doctors, we go with clinic officers who are able to attend to people and give them different health care services, including HIV counseling and testing, malaria testing, hypertension screening, and other diseases. For the health aspect, we always have the doctors and clinic officers that we work with in order to make sure that our message reaches everybody, especially those ones who have different ailments and they want to be attended to. So this program has really added value to our program because we have always had bigger numbers of people who show up to listen to us and also to get health care in terms of the health services given to them. Like I said, apart from of course malaria testing and HIV and other diseases, these guys do free medical consultation. So in a way it helps communities appreciate the value of the park. In fact, some of them have already started making comments that this is a program that they have really benefited from, different from revenue sharing and other park programs. And they have actually even gone an extra mile to say that this program has added meaning to the park and they are now valuing the park better than they were valuing it before.
I'm called Asimwe Robert. I work with the Kibaale National Park in the community department. So I'm a community conservation ranger. My major role is to bridge the gap between the community who neighbors the park and the park management. The biggest challenge we face with the community are actually animals from the park coming to the community land and destroying people's crops. More especially, the biggest challenge are the elephants. The elephants, they come out in a big number, they destroy people's crops, and in so doing, they create human-wildlife conflict. But as park management, what we have actually decided to do to minimize these conflicts, we have decided to put up a trench, the one we call elephant trench. This trench actually is put along the boundary to make sure that it deters elephants from the park to the community land. Then the trench, as you can see, we maintain it periodically. Now in other areas, the communities also, in some areas, communities also push back the soil to the trench in order to get access to the park, like when they want to collect firewood or other resources.
What other resources besides firewood?
Other resources besides firewood, which is like sometimes they need to access the medicinal plants. They are plants which are medicine. They can also feel they need to harvest the other building materials like poles. Then again, they also sometimes sneak inside the porch. It is also a big challenge you have with the communities. They sometimes go inside and they begin poaching.
They poach elephants? Yeah,
they do poach elephants, and in most cases they use the pits. They dig very huge pits such that when the elephant falls in it, it is caught there, then it cannot come out. Yeah.
Okay, now you're still explaining on this trench.
Yeah.
Why is it that this part is more deeper compared to the rest?
Yeah, this part is more deeper compared to the rest. The way I had put it earlier before, that communities, because they want to sneak inside the park and do these other illegal activities, what they do, they push back at this soil to reduce the depths of the trench, then they begin crossing. So when we are maintaining the trench, because we maintain it periodically, we make sure that these crossing points, we deepen that place, such that the communities don't use it, and at the same time, animals don't take that advantage of using the same crossing points. As you can clearly observe, that these methods we are putting in place to prevent animals from disturbing the community, you can clearly see that the methods are effective. For example, when you see this is the park, this is the trench, and this is the maize plantation. If it was not because of this trench being effective, I can assure you, you could not get these modern gardens, maize gardens across the park boundary. Then you can still see that this project of beekeeping in the valley is also a very effective method, because if it wouldn't be effective, still elephants would cross and destroy these crops.
Before the trenches and the trench and the beehives, were the complaints more coming to Kibaale National Park, or you just guessed it and had to put it there after all the elephants were not crossing over? Did you get or register any case of a sort?
Yeah, I can assure you, before these methods were put in place, the complaints were very many, all day and night. We could even come to chase away the animals, and as you know that we are not very many on the ground, still it could remain a problem, because it is not only this place but everywhere. So because of these methods, at least now we are sure the methods are effective.
Thank you very much. Welcome to Conserve Our Heritage on UBC TV, every Monday 9 to 10 p.m. My name is Glen Stephen Karamagi, and today we are still looking at Kibaale National Park. In areas of conservation, Kibaale National Park is one of the best parks we have in Uganda. Meeting the conservation area manager. How unique is Kibaale National Park?
Kibaale, first of all, is a forested park. And what is unique about it is that it has, first of all, the highest number of chimpanzees in this country in one area, because we have about 5,000 chimpanzees in Uganda. But in Kibaale alone, there are about 1,500. Those are genetic methods that have been used to census them. So there are 1,500 chimps in one location. Now, the chimpanzees are part of the primates that you find in Kibaale. So we have 13 different primates.
13 in Kibaale?
In Kibaale alone, 13 different primates. That's the highest diversity probably in the whole world, where you have 13 different types of primates in one place. And so because of that, it is branded as the primate capital of the world. That's why it stands out.
So that's the uniqueness of Kibaale National Park.
Uniqueness of Kibaale National Park. And being a forested park, the vital ecosystem services that it provides. You could have gone to a place called Mainaro.
Yes.
Yeah? In that place, we restored 4,000 hectares. It was degraded.
Okay.
That's when you'll appreciate the importance of conservation. It was degraded because of encroachment in the past, but we have restored that place by planting indigenous trees. We planted about 4,000 hectares.
Indigenous trees?
Indigenous. And then about 3,500 which were sort of enclosed in the middle because the planting was by the side. And so around 3,500 hectares regenerated naturally. And so these trees now absorb emissions, carbon emissions in the atmosphere.
You call them carbon?
Emissions, carbon dioxide that is emitted in the atmosphere.
Okay.
What you normally call global warming.
Global warming, yes.
Global warming. Yeah?
Okay.
And so these trees, they absorb the carbon that is in the atmosphere. And so this carbon that is absorbed, it is stored in the stems of these trees.
Okay.
And that is an ecosystem service because they are polluters. People who have factories countries that have strong economies, they are in the manufacturing industry, they are the polluters, they emit all those gases. And so for us, we do the cleanup. And so those trees, they absorb that carbon. And it is stocked.
Now it's understandable.
Yes.
I'm getting the science of it.
It is stocked. So that is an ecosystem service. Then another service is that is a water catchment. You know, the rivers, for example, there's River Dura that feeds into Lake George.
Okay.
It comes from the park. This forest is the shed, watershed. And this river supports livelihood of so many communities. And there are so many swamps in the forest.
Yes.
And these are breeding areas for fish, and it does provide water for animals and so on and so forth. But these swamps, feed into the expansive Lake George swamps. And it is from these swamps that, the local communities, they get fish. And actually, we have a memorandum of understanding with the communities that, fish from the park. And so we provide fish, and that is protein at household level. As a catchment, that is also another ecosystem service that the forest provides.
Now, Mr. Guma.
Yes, please.
How has the community around Kibaale National Park, or the whole landscape, really understood this? Because it more looks like it's for UWA, and it's them who understand the natural things it's providing for the community. Don't you find areas where community members want to come and cut trees, not knowing that the trees too important to him? Have you taken the information down to the community members?
We educate communities on the values of these resources that we protect. What is important, what a community member will appreciate is what he benefits from the park.
Yes.
And so, one, we have these access arrangements for communities to be able to get resources from the park. There are areas that we have designated for communities to access resources. I did talk about fish.
This is talking about fish,
but also there are people who would come in and get firewood, for example, from the park. So those resources are benefits for communities.
Yes.
Medicine and so on and so forth.
Yes.
That is one form of benefit. Also from tourism, there is money that we always set aside. The 20% collections of the gate entrance, and we put it aside, and we give it to communities to support different community projects. So that is the benefit itself. Now, when that side of Kamwenga, those areas of Bigodi, there's an expansive, very big swamp at the edge of the park. And it's one of the successful ecotourism ventures around the park, where these communities take visitors to go and do, they go and watch birds in that swamp. And so it's a community association that they benefit from tourism. So we do interface with them, train them, give them the necessary skills, and so supporting these communities to develop ecotourism, as a venture is a benefit for them, because they know this is part of the natural resources that they're benefiting from. And also in that area alone, there are women groups that come and perform for the tourists. You could have gone to Primate Lodge. It's around our Vista Information Center, Kanyanj. There's a Primate Lodge. So these women do come in and do perform for the tourists. They earn from it. So all these are benefits that help communities to appreciate the value. So they benefit from tourism, the ecotourism ventures. They benefit from money directly. The money that we get from tourism as gate fees, we share part of that money with them. And then also they benefit from resources. Many of them are also employed to work in the park as as a guides, as rangers, and so on and so forth. Also in the hotel that is in the park, talk about the primate lodge, so many of them get employment opportunities from them.
Yes. Besides communities loving the park and then looking at conservation as the best thing for all, where do you see Kibaale National Park in the next years? Because yes, there is population, and I'm pretty sure each and every year, or each and every after 5 years, there are community members that are increasing around the park. Do you see Kibaale maintaining its status in the years to come?
In fact, what we are looking at is that Kibaale, first of all, is now well positioned. You should be aware that the whole of this is a regional tourism hub. The whole of this western.
Yes.
But in particular, Fort Portal is going to be a tourism town. And so we are already within the regional tourism hub. But within the regional tourism hub, we are actually one of the preferred tourism destinations. That because of the chimps that I'm talking about, the chimp tracking that we offer there, the chimp habituation experience, and so there are many more products we are bringing on board. So regarding the communities, the kind of pressure and so on envisaged that we are putting on the park, to the contrary, we are seeing many more hotels, coming up around the park. As I speak now, I think we have around 50 hotels just around these crater lakes. So the land use, which is close to the park, is a compatible one. It's a very compatible one. So all I'm seeing is that tourism will grow in these areas with more products coming on board. Right now we have one chimp community that's being tracked, and then we are habituating a second community. It's called Braiga. I think very soon we are delivering that product, and we have developed another product. It's called the chimp habituation experience. It's built around the habituation exercise, where you make the chimps get used to humans, so that when you're in the presence of the chimps, their behavior does not change. So they behave normally. And so it helps you to understand chimps in their community, how do they behave.
But I'm a bit worried, manager, here. If a chimp start getting used to the community, is it not taking out the status of tracking, which I think is one of the best activities when you're going to look for a chimpanzee?
Now, the chimps, they live in communities. There are several communities of chimps. So we habituate some communities, and others will still remain wild. So the wild one will still act as a wild animal. But this other one that is habituated, the idea is that you are able to learn how the chimps live in their community, which is an experience. That is the one for tourism. But the wild chimps are there. They are there, but we only habituate some for purposes of tourism. So
Kibaale National Park borders how many districts?
About seven districts. Bordered by Kabarole, bordered by Kamwenge, bordered by Chenjojo, bordered by
Kasese.
Kasese.
Yes.
Kasese. I think the seven I'm talking about is looking at the whole conservation area, actually, because of Chirihura, the other side, which borders Katonga, Chegegwa, which still borders Katonga. Then you come down to Tosemliki, you have Ntoroko, and then you have Bundibujo, which borders Semliki National Park. So we talk about 8 actually, the whole of this conservation landscape.
Yeah, thank you very much for being part of Conserve Our Heritage. My name is Glen Stephen Karamagi. Every Monday 9 to 10 p.m. we enjoy Conserve Our Heritage. We've been visiting Kibaale National Park, different community members, and maybe people around who work with the national park. Interesting having different stories and knowing much on how to conserve. Thank you for being part of Conserve Our Heritage. Thank you.
live in communities. We have a community, then we have a group, then a family. Chimps live in up to a community of a number of 100 to 150 individuals. The least group can be composed of 50 individuals of chimps. And in a community of 50 or 100 chimpanzees, you will always find a leader. There is what we call a president. So what does the alpha do? To ensure there is security in a community, to look for food where they can go to feed that day. They spend most of their time on the ground and go up to feed when they are hungry. Then during the midday, especially when it has not rained, you find them relaxed on the ground. Then in the later evening, at around 3, that's when they also become active to go and do the feeding. Then later on, around 7, that's when each individual has to move and look for a suitable place where they begin making a nest. Then, an adult chimpanzee is regarded to be adult when it is 13 years and above. And they can grow up to a lifespan of 50 years in the wilderness. But those in captivity, it is said that they can extend up to 60 years. They can add around 10 years in order for their lifespan. Then the sexual behaviors, if I can talk of the sexual behaviors, when a female is on heat, she's enjoyed by all the males in the community. But it's the alpha male who will command, who will dictate at times. When the alpha is satisfied, then that's when the other small males will also come in to enjoy. They have a gestation period of 8 to 8.5 months, almost human. And that's why they are regarded to be the closest animal to human. Chimpanzees also use tools. We have seen them hunting animals. They eat meat as well. Yes, we've seen them eating these red colobus monkeys and black and white colobus. Then they also hunt the antelopes. What they do, they gather themselves, the big males, call one another. Then the monkeys will be like in trees, like you see these trees. They will have spotted some monkeys up. Then they send there some, these younger chimps, the males which are still growing up, around 15 years. They go up to chase the monkeys. So the big males will remain around, will just keep within. When these small boys, chimps, go up, they will chase the monkey, and the monkey will jump to another tree. Another tree, other chimps will also be in those trees. So when the monkey comes, the chimp will grab the monkey and throw it down. Then the males who are on the ground will come running and grab the monkey and hit it on the tree. Then it dies. So they begin sharing. So chimps are very interesting in that they are also known to be territorial animals. They occupy an area and they try to protect that territory, to guard it. In the case of an enemy, when the chimps have seen like a python or a snake, what do? They will make an alarm, a lot of calls. Woo, 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 woo. They begin making a lot of noise, alarming. So everyone will get concerned. They now look for some logs and some leaves. Like the younger ones will keep on trying to throw some wood, some leaves to the python such that it goes.
Uganda has many hot springs. Kitagata hot springs in western part of Uganda, Semuliki female and male hot springs. Most locals know the hot springs as Sempaya. This originated from a Kiswahili phrase sehemu mbaya, the difficult side, owing to the steep, challenging rocks and terrain during the construction of Fort Potro Bundibujo Road along the ridges of Rwenzori Mountain. While scientists have the technical explanation to the origin, the indigenous Bamaga community neighboring the park have their own story. They visit these hot springs annually to appease their ancestors, and Uganda Wildlife Authority allows them. A Bamaga woman is not supposed to visit a male hot springs, and all cookings are done from the female hot springs. They believe the female ancestors live beneath the female hot springs and the male ancestors live beneath the male hot springs. A ranger from Uganda Wildlife Authority educates us on the scientific formation of hot springs.
So hot springs are formed as a result of volcanicity, and this is a volcanic area. You know, the whole park lies within the western arm of the East African Rift Valley. So always in volcanic areas, there are underground molten rocks which are known as magma or lava. Those rocks keep on burning years and years. So when it rains, most of the rainwater percolates in the cracks within the earth and forms some underground rivers and water table below. So in volcanic areas where there are fault lines within the earth crust, the water gets a chance of meeting the molten rocks, and as the water meets the molten rocks, it's superheated. And as it's superheated, it becomes less dense than the hot rocks underground, and pressure is created, and it's that pressure which forces the superheated water to come back on the surface, forming these hot springs. These are what are known as geysers. With geysers, the definition is almost the same like hot springs, but the only difference is on pressure. For geysers, water is superheated from underground with high pressure, and the hot water appears above the earth's surface. Whereas hot springs, water just boils on the earth's surface. But for geysers, because of high pressure subjected to from underground, then water appears above the earth's surface in form of a fountain on the other side. This spot is boiling at 86.7 degrees Celsius, so what is not extremely very hot. But the reason as to explain why different spots are boiling at different temperatures is known as geothermal gradient. Temperatures of rocks increase with depth, so that's why different spots boil at different temperatures. So it depends on how deep the water is heated to attain a certain degree in terms of hotness. So hot spring water is used on some occasions as medicine for treating some of the skin related complications. Like if you have a skin related problem like skin rashes, ringworms, itching of the skin, so the water has some curative measures, and it has sulfur as one of the components which is present within the hot spring water, and sulfur works on skin. So the smell you are hearing of like eggs is for a mineral known as sulfur, which works on the skin. We have some other minerals, like the minerals range from calcium to lithium, whereby we have silica, we have magnesium, we have potassium, we have iron, and some other. However, hot spring water is not good for health consumption, because sample of the water was taken by National Water and Sewage Corporation for testing. However, it's not acidic, it's alkaline, it has a pH of 8.5, and the reports from the Sewage Corporation tells us that some of the minerals within the hot spring water are a little bit higher in terms of concentration than the normal water we are using. So this is the real female hot spring, and it's where we have a fountain, and I told you this is a geyser. And what is extremely very hot, and this is the hottest spot around this area, and it's boiling at 97.8 degrees Celsius. So due to high pressure subjected from the hot mantle by molten rocks, that's why the water is appearing above the surface, forming what we call a geyser. And if you are keen and observant, we have some kind of like terraces, which are built as a result of accumulation or deposition of different minerals. So as the water comes from underground, minerals keep on piling up, and as the minerals pile up, they form such a kind of layers of rocks which you are seeing, and these are soft rocks which are known as calcium carbonate rocks. So calcium carbonate rocks are soft rocks and are formed as a result of deposition of different minerals. So these rocks geological are known as travertines, which are very soft rocks. So you will be, since we were moving, you saw we were taking different routes because of the soft rocks which are present within this area. In some areas, these rocks are very soft in a way that if you step on the rocks, then you will end up getting hooked or boiled, because as you step on soft rocks, then you will end up in hot water and end up being cooked.